President Trump is a very singular president. He not only has a campaign chairman who's sitting in federal prison, his deputy campaign chairman is currently awaiting sentencing after also pleading guilty to felony charges. Well, in the newly released FBI interview notes from President Trump's deputy campaign chairman, Rick Gates, we learn a couple of things that I am absolutely flummoxed by. The first has to do with the National Republican Party, the RNC. Rick Gates told the FBI that the RNC was energized by the announcement from WikiLeaks in June 2016 that they plan to release more stolen emails from Hillary Clinton. But according to Rick Gates, the folks at the RNC were not just energized by WikiLeaks, they were also in the know. From the interview notes, quote, the RNC indicated they knew the timing of the upcoming releases. According to Gates, the timing was, quote, the only non-public information the RNC had about upcoming releases. But he apparently said Republicans did have enough of a heads up to know the timing, to know when more of these materials that were stolen by Russian intelligence and distributed by WikiLeaks, the RNC knew in advance when those distributions were going to happen. They did. How'd they know that? So that's one. Here's the other one. Rick Gates also told the FBI that Paul Manafort, the Trump campaign chairman, who's now a federal inmate, had said that the hack on the DNC was, quote, likely carried out by the Ukrainians, not the Russians. According to the FBI interview notes, that, quote, parroted a narrative that Konstantin Kilimnik had often supported. Konstantin Kilimnik, of course, was Manafort's right-hand man in Ukraine. He's also assessed by the FBI to have ties to Russian intelligence. So this whole idea, the whole origin of this idea that Russia didn't do it in 2016, it must have been Ukraine, this alternate reality conspiracy theory that was being voiced by Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, it didn't originate with Manafort. It came from Manafort's pal, Konstantin Kilimnik, who, again, according to the FBI, has tied to Russian intelligence. So by the transitive property, this means this is Russian intelligence promulgating this false narrative that exonerates Russia, right? That it was really Ukraine who did the election interference, not Russia. That's from the Russian intel guy. That's his story. He's the one who started that. Now, of course, we're living through that as the core weirdness at the center of the president's impeachment in 2019. These allegations now from Rudy Giuliani and President Trump that, just like Russian intel says, it wasn't Russia that messed with our election, must have been those dastardly Ukrainians. Joining us now is Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. He's a member of the Intelligence Committee in the House. Sir, thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Rachel.
So I'm buried in paper, as I know you and your staff are as well. But these interview notes, the FBI interview notes that were released thanks to this FOIA request this weekend, those are the two items to me that I find jaw-dropping. I want to just get your reaction to each of those to see how you see them and whether I might be misfiring here.
Yeah, well, certainly the early percolations of the Ukraine has the server thing. Of course, a completely debunked conspiracy. And let's step back for a second, Rachel. Not just debunked, but the Mueller report, for those who actually bothered to read it, and all of the associated indictments of specific people at specific addresses at the Internet Research Agency at a specific place in St. Petersburg, Russia. I mean, again, we've got the receipts on this thing, right? All kinds of people under indictment, the actual IP addresses that were used by the Russians to hack into the DNC. It's all out there for people to read. And yet, the president of the United States, in a conversation with the new president of the Ukraine, brings up this wild theory that Ukraine was somehow responsible. And look, I think you've got the intriguing angle on it here, which is if you are the Russians, and of course you know that you did it, but you want to create a little bit of uncertainty, why not have somebody like Kilimnik, which, by the way, you didn't even mention. Remember, at this point, Paul Manafort is actually sending Trump campaign polling data to Kilimnik, but why not have Kilimnik just muddy the waters a little further? And lo and behold, the president brings it up with the new president of Ukraine in July of this year.
That's, I mean, the time the elapsing of time here between somebody like Kilimnik cooking this up, Paul Manafort amplifying it and starting to say, yeah, let's posit this alternate view of what might have happened in terms of foreign election interference. I mean, that's all happening in 2016. Here it is 2019, 3 years later. And not only is that theory, as ridiculous as it seems, and as contrary to U.S. government's own findings as that seems, not only is that still around, but it's now being voiced by the president himself and seems to be the basis on which he wants to construct this new relationship with Ukraine, where they only get their White House meetings and their military aid as long as they support this craziness. I mean, that development of this over the course of 3 years, with it never going away, and in fact only rising higher and higher, I'm absolutely bewildered by that.
Well, I mean, yeah. And, you got 2 transcripts today of the depositions that have been held in my committee. As additional transcripts are released, you will see that this is still alive, that senior members of the Republican conference in those depositions are probing people about servers in Ukraine. Rachel, if we had more time, it wouldn't be hard, and people who understand this sort of thing would validate it. It wouldn't be hard to explain why folks that are looking at hacks don't take the server. What they do is they mirror a server. They download every bit and byte in a server, and they take it away, and they, till all hours of the morning, they look at it. So this notion that a server got removed from the DNC, and by the way, this is the president of the United States' notion, right, in conversations with the president of Ukraine, that the server got removed from the DNC. And by the way, remember the president's previous thing was, why didn't they take the server? But now the story is that they took the server to Ukraine. I mean, this stuff is just beyond fantastical. And it is the president of the United States holding up military aid to a country that is under attack by Russia. So it would all be very comical if it weren't for the fact that the president's actions challenged Ukrainian security and our own national security.
Congressman Jim Himes, member of the House Intelligence Committee. I know that we're going to be buried in yet more paper tomorrow as more of these transcripts come out. Thanks for helping us understand this first trench.
Thank you, Rachel.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.